Drive profile. Welcome to the next level.
MUSHA Aleste is a vertical shoot-'em-up by developer Compile. Most players regard MUSHA as fast, aggressive, and expensive. The story for MUSHA takes place in 2290, where humans have colonized the entire solar system. A Lagrange point called Gamma was used as a station for scientists to develop new technologies. Their latest creation was a supercomputer named Dire 51. Extremely intelligent, this AI outgrew its own power and has launched an attack on planet Earth. Desperate, the Federation sends the MUSHA team to combat this enemy, but things go wrong when all but one pilot are incapacitated by enemy fire. This pilot is a girl named Eleanor. Her captain explicitly commands the team to retreat, but she defies his order. Filled with bravado, Eleanor launches a suicide mission to destroy Dire 51. MUSHA has 7 rounds in total, and most contain a middle and main boss in each. Controls for MUSHA are simple as it should be. Pressing C fires your normal shot, B fires your sub-weapon, and C is used to change option forms. When it comes to the controls, there isn't anything particularly special to be found, but each game in the Aleste series focuses on the chip system. So what exactly is this? Well, as you progress, you'll see a floating pod. Shooting this will cause power chips to fall out. Collecting power chips can upgrade your normal shot, and collecting 3 power chips grants an option to your mech. You can direct your option in 8 different formations. I cannot declare the best one as it's based on preference, so try experimenting. Options are extremely beneficial, but to conquer MUSHA, you are going to need the assistance of sub-weapons. There are 3 in total. The Blazing Beam, which shoots lightning across the screen, the Vanishing Buster, which shoots bombs in a short but spread pattern, and the Defensive Detonator, a shield that protects the player from enemy fire. Each of these subs can be upgraded up to 4 levels by picking up the item of the same type. If you accidentally switch to another subtype, you shouldn't worry as the current level for that weapon still remains. With each level attained, the shot becomes stronger, and the 4th level adds a new property to your weapon. For example, a level 4 Buster adds vortexes to your bombs and increases its overall spread. Having a sub-weapon increases your chances of survival, as enemies get stronger with each stage. Shooting your normal and sub-weapon at the same time is the way to go for the most complete benefit and firepower. Dying brings immediate consequences in MUSHA. When you die, 3 things happen. Your sub-weapon, your upgraded normal shot, and your option become obscured. If you have any options in stock, they'll respawn immediately, otherwise it's back to square one. I cannot stress enough how you should try your very best to not get killed towards later parts of the game, and this is simply due to the fact that enemies become a lot stronger and plentiful in type patterns. Even if your normal shot is bare minimum, having any sub-weapon is the difference between life or death. Pausing the game lets you change ship speed, and you might have it at a fast pace, as catching power chips is going to be of highest priority. Certain boss fights and stages require more methodical maneuvering to get by in one piece, so make use of changing speeds when necessary. At normal difficulty, M.U.S.H.A provides a decent challenge and can be picked up by anyone. Hard mode is selectable in the options menu if it fancies anyone. Overall, it's a great addition to the Mega Drive STG library, no doubt. Compile did an excellent job. If you want to try other cool shooters like M.U.S.H.A, try giving these a shot. On the last episode of Mega Drive Profile, I covered Gyarus, a shmup noted for its graphical output in anime cutscenes. M.U.S.H.A was released in the very same week as Gyarus and shared a similar outlook when it came to its overall design. The iconic opening contains very detailed visuals with awesome character designs and even some nice parallax. It sets a great impression off the bat. There is a specific shot where Eleanor's visor reflects her surrounding area. This idea was inspired by a scene of the 1983 anime El Gaiam. The levels themselves are no strangers to visual techniques, and I think everybody is equally impressed by the tiles that fall into the Valley of Lava in Round 3. I personally enjoy the thunderstorm and cloud backgrounds of Round 4. It's a creative idea and a great use of the sound as well. In-game sprites are simply wonderful, and I especially appreciate how the power chips have a distinct vibrance to them. Certain elements can get a little crazy, so having that eye candy makes it easier in discerning them. The main programmer for M.U.S.H.A is Yoichi Toyama. He had this to say regarding the game's design. M.U.S.H.A was a 4 megabyte cart. Remember, 512 kilobytes is half a megabyte. In that tiny space, which wouldn't even hold a single photo from a digital camera today, we had to cram all the art, sound, and programming. What really amazes me is how we managed to finish it in just a matter of months. We had made a prototype of Aleste 2 for the Mega Drive, but had subsequently mothballed it when we were feeling the pressure of needing to quickly decide what to do with it. At that time, we also felt a big need to change direction with the Aleste series. Nakashima came up with the radical idea of a Japanese aesthetic and style, and that was how M.U.S.H.A got started. The Valley stage, which took advantage of the Mega Drive's unique segmented vertical scrolling capability, was also present in the early prototype. I was involved in programming the enemies that appear out of the depths and the way they explode and recede. The composer for M.U.S.H.A is Toshiaki Sakota, a classically trained guitarist with a surprisingly extensive discography. Sakota initially aspired to be a professional golf player, but things took a turn after being involved in a bad car accident, causing him to switch paths. At 19 years old, he began work in the video game industry. He joined Compile via a recruitment ad. Though things could have turned out differently, when called to a production meeting, Sakota was met with opposition from higher-ups. The entire M.U.S.H.A soundtrack was near completion when a sudden request was made. His superiors insisted that because the game had a Japanese aesthetic, the music should also reflect it. Sakota became flustered and prepared a song that contained strange and plucky Japanese instruments. After hearing this, his boss had a change of heart and admitted that his initial intention was better suited for the game. At the time of M.U.S.H.A's development, many STG titles relied on a Fusion S style of composition and lacked coherentness. Sakota was a proponent of this idea, and he expressed this by saying, "Fusion and mechanical sounding music was very popular in games at the time M.U.S.H.A was developed. In STG especially, as if it were some set rule, these styles were all you heard. Softer music was rarely heard. For many games, there was also no uniformity or sense of progression in the tracks, with each stage theme being very different from the next. Under these circumstances, I wanted to make the world's first heavy metal game soundtrack, a game where the music of each track would be related as a whole. The music for M.U.S.H.A is amazing. Songs comprise of heavy metal influenced by the likes of Van Halen. Some tracks also incorporate classical motifs, a tribute to Sakota's formal training. Instrumentation is strong, robust, and gritty, but not everyone agrees. M.U.S.H.A sound design has been a topic of critique with FM enthusiasts. The guitar and percussion sound attract the most attention. I am not here to declare what is the case, but I will say that Sakota did put some serious thought behind the creation of his guitar tones. He elaborates by saying, "I don't really like mechanical sounding music very much, so I searched via trial and error for ways to make it sound and feel like the instruments were being played by humans. I spent a month creating an FM guitar sound. I programmed the modulation envelope to evoke the feel of a human arm strumming, and I added vibrato to simulate the human voice. I was especially careful to make sure there weren't too many simultaneous instruments playing in the songs, so that the sound effects wouldn't cause the music to cut out. Matt and I tried out various tricks and techniques. Since the drums were fixed, that gave us 3 tracks to use for all the instruments in a given song. When I look back on it now, I feel a sense of pride. Man, we did a great job. The music was a product of its time, and I don't think I could have done it without the generous understanding of great colleagues like Nakashima, Toyama, and Mats. Mats, whose real name is Masanobu Tsukamoto, was in charge of overall sound design. Tsukamoto is a talented designer, although he faced his set of challenges during audio production. The very first sound I worked on was the lightning sound. It ended up taking me 3 days just to make this sound. There were 2 problems. Although the Mega Drive uses the same OPN style chip I had used before, the way it played back sounds was different, so I couldn't use the same process I was familiar with. Second, there were scenes that would require 2 channels for the effects. I had someone from the sound team at Sega help me explain the way FM sound was played back. Sega also requested that Kazoda and I only use 4 channels for each song. That would mean 1 channel for drums, bass, melody, and backing. With such limitations, if we didn't use our skills, there was a danger it would turn out really shabby and plain sounding. An official M.U.S.H.A soundtrack was included in the 3rd CD of the Naxat shooting collection, and I uploaded it to my channel. A lot of information and interviews were extracted from the liner notes of this album, courtesy of Shmupulations. It's also worth mentioning that Sakota has his own YouTube channel. He had one before this, but it was suddenly terminated. His entire online presence vanished until recently. Mr. Sakota seems to be doing okay, and in fact, he left a brief comment about a new CD coming out. As to what it's comprised of, I'm not sure, but I guess we'll find out eventually. These were some interesting developments in the audio department, but I think it's time we check out the music that defines M.U.S.H.A. M.U.S.H.A was released in the US and Japan on December 21st, 1990. Tooplan published the title natively and Seismic handled the Western localization. Initially titled Aleste 2 during the prototype phase, the M.U.S.H.A name was adopted as this acronym was also the mecha's name. This was discovered through various design documents that also contain illustrations of enemies and stages. M.U.S.H.A's universe was different than its predecessors and is considered a spin-off sequel in the series. The last game with the Aleste name to be released is Robo Aleste for the Sega CD, which is considered a direct follow-up. M.U.S.H.A is one of the 42 games to be included in the Japanese Mega Drive Mini, and a secret was recently revealed by Toyama on his Twitter. By resetting the game 100 times during the Sega logo, you can cycle through weapons by using a second controller and become invulnerable by holding C. M.U.S.H.A is easily one of the best shoot-em-ups of all time, with great gameplay, classic soundtrack, and fantastic graphics. I don't recommend buying this game as it's infamously expensive, so play it any way you can. It's one of the best, no doubt.